Everyone who has played a Resident Evil game knows the zombie dog, or also called the Cerberus, but you probably don't know that I just lied to you. Although it's true that probably everyone who has played a Resident Evil game has encountered some type of dogs before, considering this is usually one of the main enemies, many players don't know that the zombie dog and Cerberus are actually two separate enemies. But before you go to the comment section to angrily comment, "These two act and look the same, what are you on, you idiot?" please let me explain and dive a bit into weird Resident Evil lore. The Cerberus were Dobermans who were infected with the T-virus on purpose by the Umbrella researchers in the Arklay laboratory, which is the lab from the first Resident Evil, in case you're wondering. The goal was to create a controllable, bioorganic weapon, in short BOW, a term that you have probably heard before, to sell them to the military. Because being one of the biggest companies in the world making cosmetics, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, computers, transport and even more is apparently not enough when you can also be super evil. And shockingly, they were actually successful. A rare sight at the Umbrella Corporation, at least in that regard. Therefore they began cloning the prototype and they were tested on the courtyard of the mansion, which is also the reason why you encounter so many of them there when playing Resident Evil 1. They managed to escape during the T-virus outbreak because obviously everyone turned to zombies and everything went to shit. After they escaped, they began hunting hikers out in the Arklay Mountains, which is the reason the Bravo team and ultimately the Alpha team was sent to investigate the murders there. So in short, the Cerberus are specifically the dogs that were mutated on purpose before the events of the games, and are only present during the events of Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil 1. That also includes the Umbrella Chronicles and obviously the Resident Evil 1 remake. Now the zombie dog is something completely different, literally no similarities. But to be a bit more serious, zombie dogs are all the dogs that were mutated on purpose. Instead of being mutated by researchers in a lab, they were infected by, for example, eating infected food. We encountered them first during the events of Raccoon City. So Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3 and both Outbreak games. Funnily enough, most of them were still Dobermans, so the same dogs that were used for the Cerberus, because Police Chief Brian Irons, who is totally not a creep and totally not works with Umbrella, wanted to use them as police dogs. But there were also other dog breeds like Labradors, so in opposite to the mentioned incident, they weren't just Dobermans. Fun fact: in the scrapped Resident Evil 1.5 they used German Shepherds in the police station and Dobermans outside of it. But for unknown reason that wasn't the case in the finished and released Resident Evil 2 anymore, which is a shame in my opinion because I would have loved some more diversity in dogs. Man, that would have saved the Resident Evil 3 remake. And do you know what would save my YouTube career? If you subscribe to my channel, because I have seen that a lot of you haven't subscribed yet. So please do so if you enjoyed this video so far. Thanks for the support, but let's continue. Interestingly, they are also a bit more aggressive, possibly because they haven't been trained and are mostly just some random dogs. The zombie dog tries to attack the player immediately after entering a room. In opposite to that, the Cerberus will only attack if the player gets closer. So if you just stay in place, you can hang out with these cute little puppies forever. All other infected dogs are also called zombie dogs, including the A-virus infected ones from the CGI movie Resident Evil Vendetta, the C-virus infected ones from Resident Evil 6, and the Plaga infected ones from Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5. The Plaga infected Colmilos and Azul are obviously the most different in terms of behavior and looks, because they have the ability to let the Plaga attack, or more like getting controlled by it. Apart from that, they remain fairly similar as well though. I mean, in the end, they are still dogs, more or less. But fairly similar is a term that describes all variations of the zombie dog and Cerberus quite well anyway. Especially the virus infected ones look and behave almost identical, which is obviously also the reason why no one knows that they are something different. Similar to normal zombies, their skin has decayed and a lot of their flesh and sometimes even bones are visible. I think you could argue that they are actually one of the most gruesome monsters in Resident Evil. The Plaga ones look a lot more healthy in comparison, especially before the Plaga comes out, which is kinda weird to say considering the circumstances, but it's similar to the people that were infected and who look pretty normal and do their usual routine until Leon and Chris show up. The Resident Evil 4 remake has probably the most gruesome variant with extremely big teeth, red eyes and a lot of fur. In my opinion, they also look the most buff and bigger compared to every other one. So in short, the Cerberus are dogs that were trained and carefully selected by Umbrella to be sellable BOWs, like for example the Hunter, while zombie dogs are more like zombies or other random infected that were victims of the incidents surrounding the mentioned incident and other experiments and shit that happened later. And although they are functionally the same, they are technically something different, and you can now be a smartass about this whenever this comes up somewhere. You're welcome. But thanks for watching. Please comment, share and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. See you next time.